Welcome back, gentle viewers, to another interview. This time, my guest is Isaac Young, the science fiction writer. Many people who are, such as myself, who are fans of science fiction have noticed the incredible enshittification of the genre that has happened over the last, I don't know, at least 10 years with the rise of woke and the systematic exclusion of basically just sort of good writers who can do proper pathos, who can write, good stories in favor of just a sort of plethora now of woke women who write just the most awful slop and give people such as myself a headache. You can see this across the entire science fiction genre, from the more visible outlets, things like Star Wars and Star Trek, which have gotten terrible, but just generally to science fiction itself. And the only writers, it seems, that have managed to really survive and thrive in the genre have just become increasingly woke, because it's increasingly what you need to do if you don't want to get blackballed from the industry. However, there is hope. There is a small group of right-wing science fiction writers who, enabled by the ability for essentially anyone to get their story out there, have been making an end run around the publishing houses and the, I guess you would call it, the woke cartel. And one of them, who I particularly enjoy, is Isaac Young, writer of The Last Human, Domes of Calrathia, and the Matryoshka. Isaac, what was it called? The Matryoshka effect, the Matryoshka
divide.
The Matryoshka
there's also
divide.
One more.
Right, not the Matryoshka bauble or something. Yes, the Matryoshka divide. Pretty good stuff. How's it doing, mate?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh yeah, no problem. I had really, man, I'm a big science fiction fan. I just really into science fiction, and the state of the industry over the past 10 years has just been terrible to watch. And reading some of sort of the new crop of writers that are coming out, I think of yourself, T.R. Hudson, who wrote an excellent book called Automaton. It does look like there are sort of green shoots starting to develop. Would you like to give us a bit of background on yourself and how it is that you got into writing science fiction?
Well, I've been writing forever. It was sort of a childhood dream. I was always that kid who who was in the corner reading books, and I'd say I started actually writing seriously sometime in high school, entering college. But I didn't get my first book published, The Matryoshka Divide, until my junior year of college, and then I've just been making books ever since.
I really quite liked Matryoshka Divide. I mean, you can sort of tell it is like a first book, especially sort of in comparison to some of your later work. But I really quite liked it. I thought the characters were really good. There's an Orthodox priest in there, which you literally never see. Haven't seen in science fiction. I mean, the last thing I think to even sort of explore that was stuff like Canticle for Leibowitz. There was that really annoying book that Neil Stephenson wrote. Did you ever read that one? There's a bunch of monks. They're on a strange planet. They all carry little balls with them. It's like Neil Stephenson in his later arc, he just started writing these books that were just way too long. And compared to things like Snow Crash and Diamond Age, they just became sort of really long and interminable.
I thought the only one I've read like that is Hyperion by Dan Simmons, that tries to explore religion a little bit. That's the only one that comes to my mind at the moment.
Hyperion was a great series. I loved Hyperion. A bit long, but just really really cool. I mean, Hyperion was mainly about Teilhard de Chardin, if I recall correctly. It's been a while. So I presume you grew up on sort of science fiction classics. Would you like to tell us about some of your favorite ones?
I mean, everything by Michael Crichton, a lot of stuff by Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, Robert Heinlein, Gene Wolfe. I mean, I don't think you'll have any surprises with me. I read all the big names.
So most of those that you are referencing, they do seem to be white men. Would you like to apologize for enjoying these titans of fiction and perhaps surface more, trans queer authors of color? I honestly I can't think of any. I just I just don't, compared to these titans. I mean, like, my favorites are Haldeman, the Forever War. I really liked Neil Stephenson's early stuff, Snow Crash, William Gibson, of course. I'm very, very much a bit of a cyberpunk head. Philip K. Dick, I was really into. Although the thing with Philip K. Dick is that he tends to just like write the same book over and over. I don't know if you've read a lot of his stuff, but if you sit down and you read, like, say, 6 Philip K. Dick books back to back, you realize it's all basically the same story about this horrible breakup he had with this like crazy girl. Every single freaking story is like that.
Yeah, I've only read a few of Philip K. Dick's short stories, and of course, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I need
Yeah.
to read more of his stuff. It's on the list.
So what has been your experience? I mean, the stuff that I've read of yours so far, I mean, particularly Matryoshka Divide, didn't seem to be overtly right wing. I mean, apart from the fact that presumably you are white, you can apologize for that anytime you want. By the way, that's perfectly fine. We did miss a land acknowledgement when we started. Of course, we are streaming on the internet, which is the proud property of I don't know, some fucking tribe. Oh yes, the white Americans. Yes, so we are broadcasting on white American land. I'd like to give a land acknowledgement to the white Americans who created the internet. Thank you very much. Did you find? I mean, now everything's going through Kindle, did you even need like a publishing house when you got started with Matryoshka Divide? How was it sort of navigating the whole process?
Well, I mean, it just became eminently obvious that I was not going to get my foot in the industry in any meaningful regard. So I was like, okay, self-publishing it is. Um, which, it comes with its own set of perks. I don't have to give 90% of my royalties to a publishing house. But the main disadvantage of indie publishing is marketing and book sales, because when you put your stuff on the internet, the first thing you learn is everyone else also has their stuff on the internet, and you have to shout really hard to get any attention.
Or cultivate a niche, a bunch of like racist fans, presumably. Have you considered roundly shunning your own fan base because they are not sufficiently black and trans of color? Seems a bit problematic to me. You were saying that you can't get Last Human onto Kindle for some reason. You said you were
No, I
getting black
can.
people.
I can. It's more to do with I'm in talks with a publisher. I don't want to reveal any details
Uh-huh.
or really go into it, but that's the reason why it's not published yet. It's not a matter of can't. It's just a matter of discussing opportunities.
So 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 the publishing houses have not disappeared with the advent of Kindle. They're still around. Presumably they would handle like press and publicity and all that kind of like other stuff, but don't have an actual monopoly on, the actual printing of books and stuff like that.
Yeah, for this particular thing, what attracted me was they had the capability to get my books into actual stores. So that was what got my attention, and we'll see what happens.
Does anyone buy books in stores now? I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I would need an entire other room if I had all the books that I have on my Kindle in actual, real life. So I thought, are bookstores actually dying, or is that, is the sort of announcement of its death premature?
Well, the reason they're dying is because they're filled with porn and slop, for lack of a better description. They're only catering to a very specific female audience at the moment. And it's really funny when you go in there. The only other thing that's really expanding is the manga section at the back. I've been visiting my Books a Million for a few years now, and every single time it's like this like parasitic growth slowly devouring the whole store. It's really funny to watch. But no, I think here's the thing. In terms of entertainment, it's obvious that there are 1,000 different choices, each with a hit that hit the dopamine centers way harder than a book does. Yeah, I mean, you have YouTube, video games, TV, anything. And that's certainly had its effect on the reading market. But the people who stayed, the people who like reading as their preferred form of entertainment, they like doing it physically. So I'd say there's still a very good place for bookstores in the future because everyone wants an actual book. The ebook market is big, but when you talk to readers, they want an actual book in their hands.
Oh, that's really interesting because I read everything on Kindle now, apart from, of course, Morning Glory Milking Farm, which was an incredible tour de force. I went and bought a physical copy. It is weird how much porn seems to have infiltrated the writing space. I mean, like porn for women, obviously. What do they call it? Is it chick lit or something like that? It's a very, very strange phenomenon. I mean, women have always liked a bit of, you know, spicy sort of romance novel, but it does seem to have rather broken away from its chains and just gone like sort of full into orbit at this point.
Yeah, it's just slippery slope. The thing that used to be a fallacy nowadays is just an obvious imminent reality. Like if you like wind the clock back a decade or two, you would not the sorts of books that people are reading now would be not even in the store at all. They'd be in some sort of they wouldn't be in a bookstore. They'd be in an adult store,
Yeah.
um, in some grungy corner that no one wants to be seen in. Um, but nowadays, one, I think there's just a lot less shame about those types of books nowadays. Two, a lot of people don't really realize what's in them until you actually look and read the thing. So it's sort of easier to I'd say easier to hide.
I guess that was contemporaneous with all the sort of, trans stuff getting into bookstores and all that kind of thing. Um, one of the things that I've noticed now as well is that the sort of incredible workification of sci-fi has actually destroyed my ability in some sense to enjoy sort of pre-woke sci-fi that was like trending along that same sort of vein. You recommended in one of your Twitter posts this book by David Brin. I forget the name of it. I've been reading it, and what struck me and what struck me about a lot of other works is that they can't really do tragedy, right? Like one of the things I like about your work, I like this about T.R. Hudson's stuff as well, is it's proper tragedy, right? Like real, sort of dark, like gritty stuff. Like the a lot of sci-fi, it just seems to have this kind of weird sort of Star Trek gloss to it. Like even the drama is not really drama. There's never any sort of like real stakes if you get what I'm saying. Like, and I don't know what it is I'm getting at. Maybe it's just that I get the sense that the authors have never known true suffering or something like that, right? Because there's never anything like really um like if you take something like Domes of Calrathia, right? Which you I believe you said was a tragic love story, which it is between oh my god, I forget the name of the characters. Bernice was like the girl, and what was the name of the main character?
Cirrus.
Sirius. Yeah, that's right. Right. So it's a doomed a doomed love story, right? Sirius is bound by an unbreakable oath to reach Calrathia and to deliver this exquisite book after he's been cast out of the Order of Astronomers, and he meets this lady, and she wants to be with him, but it is not to be. I mean, not that the entire book is like a romance, but it's very I don't know, it's very poignant. You just don't see these kinds of like, tragic love stories or sort of tragedies really covered in this space. It seems to be all mostly just sort of very progressive, right? Like what trials we encounter on the way are merely sort of necessary steps on the road to progress, right? There's nothing that I've read recently that's truly sort of like Lovecraftian in the sense of, epic doom or just and for science fiction, you would think there would be more of that, right? Like space is large, cruel, dark, right? Like, this is what the thing that sort of Lovecraft captured really, really well, the uncaring nature of the universe. I'm also a big fan of Dan Abnett. Actually, he wrote a series called Eisenhorn about Inquisitor fighting the Chaos hordes. That has like a sort of very Lovecraftian kind of sci-fi film to it. Are you a fan of Lovecraft at all?
Oh yeah, he's a huge influence on my work. I pretty much read everything by him,
right.
except
So
for the Dream Quest. That's the one thing I haven't touched yet. Seth.
I haven't read that one either. It's been a while. Do you have any kind of writing philosophy? Or wax lyrical a bit. I feel like I'm speaking a bit too much in this interview. You are the one being interviewed.
I mean, I guess I have a lot of things I could say about my writing. I've become quite infamous for my hatred of world building. What I like to do is I like to jump into my stories immediately, and I often get texted by text from people asking me how do I maintain my my pace and output, and I say I don't like doing outlines. I don't like doing I love to just jump in and really flesh out a scene. And I find that the world building that I need comes to me as I'm in the scene with the characters rather than the other way around, where I meticulously plot out every single detail of my story until I get a 500-page outline and no story whatsoever.
Interesting. Do you find that you write yourself into a corner sometimes doing that, like having to sort of post hoc, or do you just do that thing of like the universe doesn't really have to make sense, so why have a cohesive world sort of built? I guess that would add to the sort of dark, gritty, sort of headlong rush through an uncaring universe sort of vibe.
I don't think I've ever written myself into a corner, mostly because I know how each of my stories ends. So I'm always constantly traveling from A to B, and while I don't know the specific path I need to take to get there, I basically chart out a course with that light at the end of the tunnel, and that's always prevented me from writing myself into an area that I could not get out of.
Right. And you did this with The Last Human, because I think I saw you saying on Twitter that it's basically the story of a galactic warlord and how he gets to become a galactic warlord. So you've already given away the ending, basically, right? Like he becomes a galactic warlord. I was reading it just before I came on the stream. It's got a really nice intro. The main character, Vast, is it?
Yes.
He's a slave on a alien nutrient farm, a maggot farm, enslaved by this sort of insectile group of aliens that have no sort of real care. They're just completely servile and indifferent. I thought the way you wrote the alien civilization, the insect civilization, was pretty good, actually. And then one day he runs into a human bounty hunter who, sucks him away from this life of toil, and he is like, you know, amazed by the fact that he is not, in fact, the only human left. You said this is going to be a really long story, right? You're already up to like 60 chapters or something crazy like that.
I'm currently writing chapter 44. It's about 130,000 words, which translates to, let me pull out my calculator. This is the question that authors hate, is how long your story is.
Oh no,
And,
I don't mean it in a technical
no,
sense.
it's I literally don't know until it's published, because all the formatting's different. So the words per page changes depending on the dimensions of the book and all that.
Oh, look,
But
don't worry.
it's roughly about 472 pages at the
Okay.
moment.
Okay. But it sort of, it reminded me a bit of the way I guess you would describe Dune. Not to, you know, not to say that there's a direct comparison, but you know, this idea of a sort of a person of grand destiny, a man of history, as it were. That's another trope that seems to have dropped out of sci-fi writing. You know, you had it in books like Foundation and stuff like that, and Dune, obviously, but modern sci-fi. Oh my god, I just stopped reading it. I think around the time of COVID, because what I increasingly started finding is that I'd pick up a series by an author. There was a really good series. I forget the name. This guy, he basically did Sherlock Holmes in the Cthulhu universe, right? And I think he started writing in like just before 2000, and the first few were like great, really, really good, right? You know, it's Victorian England, so you know, people are racist, right? And then by the third book, right, like someone had clearly, you know, clearly gotten the DEI notice, right? Because, you know, suddenly there was a black female side character, and there weren't any comments about the opium smoking Chinaman, and it was all, and I was just like, oh, that's like, once I've seen it, I can't unsee it now. It just ruins my enjoyment of any book if it's been touched by the necrotic, you know, hand of woke. I'm just so over it now.
Well, what a lot of classic sci-fi authors were doing, especially Asimov, was trying to, and Frank Herbert too, was basically trying to deconstruct the great man of history trope. But modern progressives, it's gone a bit further than that, where they can't even conceptualize a great man of history. It's literally not in their worldview, or if it is, it's Hitler. So yeah, none of their entertainment can even really touch that reality unless it's to condemn it. And you can see this with pretty much all modern entertainment. Like, just look at the new Star Trek show. I mean, the old Star Trek shows had a sense of grandiosity to the captains. Especially you'd have Picard and Cisco. Nowadays, that's completely absent, and you're just not going to get it back.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I haven't watched any of the new Star Wars or the new Star Trek. I'm basically in this position where I I want my memories to stay untouched, because they're just been going back and sort of strip mining all these sort of cultural treasures, and if they can't delete them, they sort of try and overwrite them with these new, like, just horrible sort of faggoty versions where, you know, there's no, I mean, it's interesting what you were saying about the great man of history thing. Yeah, it does seem like the only great man of history left is Hitler. Like, they just, I suppose because of the sort of communist Marxist influence. You know, there's so much more um, collectivism. I mean, you see that. Okay, I mean, to be perfectly honest, the only time I watch things like Star Trek and Doctor Who now is I watch like Disparu or someone else like do a video ripping it apart, because I wouldn't be able to like watch it without, you know, someone sort of commentating on it. Um, and it's just expressly now, like, there are no, I mean, like Picard was great. I think my favorite episode of Star Trek is the Four Lights one, where they sort of did their own version of 1984. I thought that was great. Did you ever see that episode? You know, there are four lights. He's being interrogated by the Cardassians, I think, like that, and they're trying to convince him that there are in fact 5 lights instead of like 4, and he's, you know, he's all drugged up and stuff.
I don't think I've seen that episode now.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I've always been a big fan of George Orwell, so sort of, you know, any decent treatment of 1984. You must have seen the meme. There's like a meme. There's even a meme going around and pick up. There are 4 lights. Ah, mate, freaking awesome. Classic Trek. I've also found it like weird the way people. I mean, I guess it's one of the sort of consequences. I mean, you see this with Tolkien. You know, these people they can go university degrees basically, like, you know, come and shit on a great author and get your PhD. You know, someone who could never hold a candle to the original. Because I could never create something this good, but if I smeared shit all over it, right, I could get a PhD in smearing shit all over history. Oh, it's bloody repugnant. They do it with Dune now as well. Like, I hate it. I hate everything about it. So I'm glad to see the green sort of shoots of a kind of right-wing science fiction sort of click starting. Don't worry. You may be reviled at first, but like, give it 10, 20 years, if we haven't been all, liquidated by the World Economic Forum by that time and turned into nutritious maggot-based sludge. I'm sure its time will come again.
Yeah, it'd be really nice if inflation stops, so I could actually spend the money without it being inflated away into nothing.
Yeah, well, I don't see that happening anytime soon, unless unless they're going to like take away central banking, which doesn't seem like it's going to be a thing. You were, I believe you were talking at one point about how there's very few like patrons for right wing art. This does seem to be a thing across the right wing generally. I don't know whether it's I guess it's probably the threat of career destruction. The more successful you are, the more the more possible damage could be caused, or dug up if you donated to a right wing cause. I presume. I mean, the left have many and several patrons, obviously, for their crappy art.
Yeah, it's quite a struggle. I guess first and foremost is if you were to actually patronize right-wing art, that'd make you, as you pointed out, extremely cancelable. But on top of that, people used to patronize art for status, right? You get Michelangelo to get you to build, to literally build the most beautiful artwork imaginable, and there's just no status attached to these things anymore. So what? Why would I? Why not choose to invest in the super yacht? A third thing is the left. It's the point isn't to necessarily patronize the arts so much as they want to defraud the taxpayer and pay their own people. So that's kind of more what's going on. If you look into if you look into how these people are funded, yeah, it's massive fraud. And basically, yeah, let's send all our taxpayer money to fund trans opera houses in Brazil.
Yeah, but this fraud has an ideological purpose. I mean, yeah, obviously they're fleecing money, but they're fleecing money for the inevitable progressive victory of gay race communism, of which personally I cannot wait. Being sort of white, straight, and Christian means that I stand to benefit the most, obviously, from gay race communism. And I salute our gay race Leninist brothers, and do hope that the vanguard will be merciful when the time comes for them to seize gay race power. Has there been a lot of I mean, I know there were cancellations of sort of established writers sort of back in the peak woke period, but I think everyone's learned the rules of the game by now, right?
I wouldn't say everyone's learned the rules of the game so much as the left has just lost steam in cancel culture. It still happens, but it's not as I think the religiosity behind cancellations is dead. Because if you're on the right wing, right, the word racist used to carry like great power. You know, the last thing in the world you'd want to be called is a bigot. And you know, as soon as that magic word got thrown against you, you basically already on your knees trying to disprove a negative. Nowadays, if someone calls you a bigot, they could still do some serious damage to you. But anyone on the right is going to be like, yeah, screw you.
I think a lot of people on the right.
And
yeah. Sorry, go on.
And particularly on the left, I would say that, you know, there's how many people are. I mean, yeah, you still have a fervent activist class, but you know, the people in actual positions of power. I think you have a lot of cynics using this religion, basically just using this religion because it justifies their power, less so than it's an actual animating force anymore. It's just entropic.
So you think it's breaking down under its own contradictions? I don't know whether that's. I mean, I can see that in the US. In the UK and places like Canada and Australia, it does seem to still be going strong, or at least among the elite class. It does seem like the actual populations are rebelling somewhat. What's your sort of prediction on how the culture is going to move? Do you think there's going to be a resurgence in right wing art, or or just art that doesn't like suck?
That's difficult to say. The problem is, in order to get that resurgence, you need to be able to push things into the mainstream, and to push things into the mainstream, you have to have institutional support. Because otherwise, it's just going to remain as a circle of unknown authors selling their books to each other. You really need to have money and backing behind you. You actually have to get your books into physical bookstores. You actually have to get adaptations to either live action adaptations, cartoon animations, or sorry, live action stuff, cartoon animations, just more digestible content that succeeds on the market, video game adaptations, stuff like that, which all require tremendous amounts of money and backing and organization too.
But a lot of those institutions do seem to be failing at a pace. I mean, you were pointing out the way that anime is beginning to sort of take over because the Asians are not afflicted by the same woke. Video games are going the same way. Surely at some point, these companies like must either go broke or change direction. Maybe they'll just all destroy themselves in a sort of flash of fiat money, and sort of new things will grow from the ashes.
Yeah, that's I'd say that's probably where things are heading. I don't think that we're necessarily going to be able to retake a lot of these institutions before the progressives at the helm just crash them into the ground and burn them. The only real question is how quickly we can get parallel institutions up and running that are safe from leftist influence.
Yeah, well, the thing about parallel institutions is, as you said, is that you need some kind of government support, or the government will just try and crush them, basically. I mean, obviously you do have ways around that, funding channels like crypto and stuff like that. It's kind of weird that we're even talking about this in relation to your work, because it's not like you wrote the Turner Diaries in space, or like science fiction Mein Kampf or anything like that, right? Like it's just good like science fiction, but it's not everyone's going to like hold each other's hands and have a nice sort of group blowjob on the way to progressive utopia.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit. Could you repeat that?
God damn it. Just saying that, like, it's weird that we're having this conversation about your work. It's not like you wrote Mein Kampf in space, or something extreme like that. It's just good science fiction that doesn't have that sort of mass sort of degenerate group hug towards progressivism vibe.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because It's, that's the progressive elements are a requirement to get published nowadays. And if your story lacks progressive elements for whatever reason, it's automatically right wing and thus unpublishable. um, which is which is unfortunate, but it's also the reason why there's such a content drought in mainstream publishing institutions.
Do they have like actual style guides? Like, every X character must be a diverse alien of color, and this many characters have to be like gay and trans and disabled, or is it more like an informal omerta kind of thing?
I mean, I imagine that there's style guides, documents being passed around in the upper levels. But mostly it's just, all right, is this person a client of the leftist class? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And I'm not, so.
Ah, how dare you, sir? Don't you
I
know
know.
everybody should aspire to be a client of the leftist class? They have the best values, right? I mean, look, they're progressing towards utopia. What are you progressing towards? Good fiction? I mean, what kind of goal is that to pursue? Next, you're going to say, right, that art should be done for its own sake rather than the pursuit of a political goal. I hope that's not how you feel, because I'll be very, very offended, obviously.
Yeah, actually, I do think that you can write political art. Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers is a very good example of it. Um, Not that saying that all art should be like Starship Troopers, but it's a proof that it can be done and it can be done well. The problem is that the left's politics are so ugly, spiritually shallow, say nothing about reality, and just generally insufferable that their heavy-handedness is just unbearable to watch on screen or read or see anywhere.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit like the sort of Tipper Gore Christian right, only much worse, because they have complete institutional control. Did you ever read The Forever War by Joe Haldeman?
I have not.
Mate, I would highly recommend that. It's sort of, I believe, because of the time of its publishing, it's sort of a critique of the Vietnam War. It's one of those books that sort of critique the kind of sort of blind nature of the military, except it has a very, very novel take on faster than light travel and relativity. So instead of using sort of gateway rules, or warp rules, or where you can open a gateway and travel, instead it has like actual relativity. So by the time they blast out to whatever galaxy it is they're fighting in, centuries have passed, which means that by the time they actually encounter the aliens that they've sent to fight, in entire generations have been born and died, and technology is like changed. Are we back?
I'll certainly give it a check out.
Okay. So let's play like a few minutes of The Last Human as well. For this is meant to plug your book. I'm really into it. And the voice acting on the audiobook is really, really good. You got professionals to do it, I presume.
Yep, his name is Son of Sonnet, and you can find him on Twitter. He does excellent work.
Okay. Would you like to introduce it? Give us a potted introduction to your magnum opus.
So basically, The Last Human is a story set in the far future where humanity has been nearly pushed to extinction. The story follows the account of Vass as a galactic warlord, and the story is basically his memoirs from his childhood as a slave to ruling an empire.
Okay. Succinct. You are very brief. Okay, let's check this out. The link to The Last Human will be in the show notes, and let's just play like a couple of minutes, give you a bit of a flavor of it.
Is The Last Human, written by Isaac Young, narrated by Son of Sonnet. Chapter 1. The Stranger. I was 14 when Amon Russ came to collect his bounty from the maggot farms of Giza 6. He had traveled all the way to the outer edges of the Druskerous sector, to Mansa space. Until then, I had never seen another human being before. I thought I was the last one left. At least, that's as close as I can put it. Back then, I didn't have an understanding of what a human was. All that I understood was that I was different from my fellow Mansa laborers. I looked different, ugly even. I was weaker, barely able to breathe the thick plumes of hydrogen sulfide in the agrofields. I was dumber. I couldn't speak the Mansa language, and so my Ptah, my supervisor, was forced to resort to Galactic Basic. And of that simplest language, I could only glean very little. So, when Amon took off his ventilator mask, I wasn't sure what kind of species I was looking at. It took me a moment to realize his bizarre features were similar to my own, at least like my hazy, yellowish reflection in the coolant sludge. He pointed at me and spoke a language I didn't understand. When I shook my head in confusion, he switched to a version of Galactic Basic that was equally foreign to me. It was only much later that I learned he had been asking for my name. Names are not an alien concept on Giza 6, but to apply it in the sense of an individual was. The problem was that he had addressed the question in the singular, referring to me and me alone. If you were asked for your identity, you would have answered in your clade, which defined your role in the Mansa hierarchy. And if you were especially important, you would have been given a designation number. Otherwise, identity markers were reserved for when you were on shifts, when it was necessary to track productivity. If I technically understood the question, I would have answered Xeno Urtaf of subsection 703, third cycle shift number 536289. And if I properly understood the question, I would have answered Voss. But back then, I didn't realize the word you called yourself could be used by others as well. All I knew then was that a stranger with my face had appeared. I wondered if there were others like him, and I wondered if I could go there. It was not out of courage that I aided the bounty hunter. As far as I was concerned, I was just trying to survive. The workers were processing on the loading dock, boarding the floating skiffs to set out over the wriggling agrofields. I had just strapped into my seat, crammed in with a dozen other Mansa near the back. We sat in 2 rows, facing each other, while the pilot in the fore compartment was chittering at the controls. The harnesses and the seat were uncomfortable. They were not designed for a human body. My legs could not reach the grated flooring, swinging in the open air. The harness was also too big. Instead of resting snugly against my chest, I had to sling it around my stomach to keep myself secured to the skiff. Much of the vessel was left with the dangerous unconcern of its occupants. And since Mansa do not sit so much as lean back and rest on their jointed legs, I was always in fear of sliding off the seating and tumbling into the fields 100 feet below. That day, I heard sounds of distress above the usual chattering. Not many can parse out the inflections and tone of the Mansa language, but even a novice could have detected the frenzied higher pitch from the loading dock. The skiff swayed in the air as a new pair of boots jumped onto the deck. The alien was scaly and orange and wore a tattered jumpsuit. It had bulging eyes and a powerful set of snapping jaws. Around its neck were a set of frills that seemed to flutter with every breath the creature took. His 4-fingered hands held something. He looked behind and barked a sound which I took to be a cry of anger. Before I had time to get the measure of this new visitor, the alien ran to the front of the skiff and shot the Mansa pilot in the head. The insect slumped off his seat, spilling dark purple blood all over the console. The orange alien pushed the controls forward, and the skiff's engine screeched as the vessel jerked forward. It had still been tethered to the loading dock, and so the clamping mechanism was ripped off, sending the skiff spinning dizzyingly in the air. The Mansa around me were chittering, distressed, but not one of them unbuckled themselves to try to wrest back control of the skiff. They were Urtaf. They were not expected to fight. We were rising steadily away from the loading dock. Despite the alien's poor grasp of the piloting controls, it had managed to stabilize the vessel and swing it clumsily forward. I had just unbuckled myself and stumbled to my feet when I saw another alien run forward onto the loading dock below. It was wearing a full Evo suit, and so I couldn't see any of its features behind the bulbous black visor. It raised its pistol and took several pot shots at us. I ducked for cover, and even though it would have broken my legs, I looked to jump off the rising ship. Broken bones were better than dead, However, I was forced to take cover as bullets ricocheted off the metal, and one or two of the Mansa workers caught a stray round. Their chittering turned to gasping cries of pain. One was dead, sagging in its harness. The alien below ran to another skiff, and that was the last I saw of him as my hijacker pushed our vessel up and away. The loading dock was growing smaller. The bustling piers turned to many small metal fingers arrayed on the side of one of the hexagonal arcologies that were strewn across the titanic caverns of Under Hive 204. I was panicking. We were going in the wrong direction. The alien should have angled the skiff down and towards the aggrefields. Access to the surface was only through the freight elevators which carried heavy loads up and down the hives. As we picked up speed, I realized the orange alien could accidentally crash the skiff into one of the massive supports which held up the rocky sky. Stumbling over to the cockpit, I shouted in my poor understanding of basic, "Stop! Stop!"
Dum dum dum. So yes, if you want to find out what happens next, I do like that voice actor. It's got a very Orson Welles kind of like vibe to him. You can find The Last Human entire audiobook. I don't know how many episodes you're up to now, like 40 or something like that. Audiobooks are a bit of a lost art. It seems. I do like to see them come back. Is there anything else you'd like to plug? Any final words, Isaac?
I suppose I'd also like to plug, we're closing out the Kickstarter for my not newest book, but it's the newest published one called Dead Men Running. It's a superhero dystopia story that has a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor, and it's basically about being heroic in a very broken society. You can find that on the pin post on my Twitter page.
And what's your? I'll link your Twitter in the description. So is Dead Men Running? Is it sort of like the boys, but they have actual heroes rather than everyone being a degenerate?
It's the boys if it wasn't deconstruction.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds good. Well, thank you very much for coming along, Isaac. I wish you every success in your desire to revive right-wing science fiction. God, I just hope we get more of it. I can't stand the woke crap anymore. I've had it up to I don't know. I was sick of it. I was sick of it like 5 years ago, and now I'm just like, I guess, allergic to it at this point.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, man. Best of luck. Check out Isaac's stuff. It's all in the description to the video, and I'll see you for the next interview. Good night.
Night.